So I think it's been a little too long since I had some Van Damme action on this channel. So let's see if this film holds up to scrutiny as I give you my review of Death Warrant. French-Canadian police detective Louis Burke finally hunted down and brought to justice the Sandman, a psychotic killer who murdered his partner. 16 months later, he is recruited to infiltrate a U.S. prison where a series of murders, including that of the assistant warden, have drawn the attention of the governor, who is hoping for a swift and quiet resolution. Burke is paired with Amanda Beckett, assistant to the Attorney General, who act as his line of communication in and out of the prison. Once inside, he tries to forge a relationship with Hawkins, a convicted murderer who is singled out amongst inmates and guards alike, but has interesting resources within the prison to pull upon, to Burke's benefit. Yet Burke's actions gain the attention of the prison staff, which puts him into further danger. As Amanda digs into computer records, Burke gets deeper into the prison to uncover the seeds of corruption branching out from even the highest levels. However, worse yet is the man held in solitary confinement is the Sandman himself, who outs Burke as a cop and promises him a painful death. Now he must escape through hordes of violent inmates, with the knowledge that even the guards themselves will kill to hide their deadly secrets. So following on from his hit films Bloodsport, Kickboxer, Cyborg, and Lionheart, Jean-Claude Van Damme hit another big one with Death Warrant, grossing over $46 million over his $6 million budget, and it was originally financed by Cannon Films, but because they went bankrupt and got tangled up with distribution rights between themselves and MGM about who released the film theatrically, the film got delayed for a very long period of time, until September 14th of 1990, and very telling was the fact that after shooting Death Warrant, Van Damme was able to go off and shoot Lionheart and get that released 8 months before Death Warrant ever hit the theaters. There were definitely a lot of things going on legalese-wise to get that thing pushed back, but regardless of that, MGM did release it in the United States and did get a major return on investment on this film, which was the very first screenplay that David S. Goyer ever got to be commercially produced. And you know him from the Blade trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy, working on many different screenplays of varying quality over the years. He's always been the kind of screenwriter who always feel like his material is only as good as the director that it gets filtered through. When he's worked with a very high caliber, a very capable type of director, it turns into some very good gold. But when it's filtered through someone who's not very talented and doesn't really have much of a vision to him, it kind of gets watered down and kind of turns into shit. Here we got Daran Sarafian as the director of this film, who I did review another one of his films last year, in terms of the Mario Van Peebles, Christopher Lambert film, Gunman, which I absolutely very much enjoyed. And he is a very steady-hand, capable type of director who can really bring out some fantastic, entertaining qualities when he's got charismatic actors and a really fun script to work with, and a lot of good elements to just combine into a very cohesive, really exciting package together. And with Death Warrant, there is a tinge of that here and there, but it really does kind of start off with that David Goyer script, and obviously, being the first one he got produced is obviously probably not going to be the best work he could have come up with, but nice for him to have broken into the business with this type of script and get something up off the ground there. But looking at it, it's a script that doesn't have a whole lot going on with it. That it seems very standard fare type of stuff for this style of film. A cop goes undercover in a prison and starts to uncover all the little dirty secrets that are kind of bubbling up to the surface, all the little corruption type of stuff. Who's backstabbing who's out for who, there's little conspiracies. You've probably seen this in a lot of other films, a lot of other television series. It's not something that inspires much imagination or innovation with what it has to offer here. It's very standard fare, flat, straight out, streamlined, lean type of script that Sarafian does create into a very lean type of film. He doesn't kind of try to exaggerate things, or he doesn't try to put in a lot of fatty type of stuff here and there. He does keep very focused and very streamlined of what he's putting together, very nicely, tightly, well-paced type of film that is very much story-driven here, that is much less of an action film and much more of a story-driven type of thriller in a certain way to a certain extent. You do have those scenes here and there where Van Damme does throw down with a few different people. Most of the film is very much story-driven, that is him uncovering these little secrets here and there. But Sarafian does have a nice steady hand. He puts together everything very well. He does create a nice thing off of the script that he has to work with. And does some nice stuff with the cast that he has here with, again, Jean-Claude Van Damme, who had been trying to break out of just being an action star, just trying to break out of being muscles and a roundhouse kick type of actor or whatnot, that Cannon Films very much kind of saw him as solely. And this film really kind of reflects a lot of that. There is a lack of a character that really has to portray here as Burke, that it very much kind of rests on what charisma he can bring forth with the limited amount of material he has in the script for his character here, because, again, it's just kind of investigative little things, but there's a cleverness to the character that is very engaging and relatable. You kind of grasp onto these things where the character is using some type of innovative thought to kind of break into these little circles of the culture and the prison, all these little things that work it all to his benefit to try and figure out exactly what's going on here. But it's also the thing that it is a role that doesn't demand much of him. It's not much of a challenge for him, either as an actor or as a martial artist, because it doesn't demand as much as he had in, like, his more action-oriented type of films like Bloodsport or Kickboxer or whatnot, or even as he would do later after he shot this, Lionheart, which became much more of a film that he kind of had more of a personal project to really kind of show off his acting skills and show much more of a range of what he could offer as a leading man. This is very much a narrowly focused type of character and script or whatnot that doesn't offer him that much room to expand or do much to really kind of spark off even like a chemistry with his co-star of Cynthia Gibb, who is a very pleasant, bright type of personality in the film that I've really liked her in other roles before this. She does a nice quality performance here, but they do try to sell you that they're kind of building up a sort of romantic relationship when they eventually get to the part where Burke's character in the prison gets a conjugal visit and he just kind of starts making the moves on her like they've had this building sexual tension throughout the whole film, but it really just doesn't spark off anything at all, not from a lack of two actors who do good work. They try to do a little something here, but they didn't really put much effort into it, whether it was script or direction-wise. It really just didn't have those moments to flesh it out and make it much more of a thing in the film. And you do get some other good characters in this whole thing, such as have Robert Guillaume in this whole thing, who's a fantastic actor. Many people would probably know him from Benson in the 80s or whatnot, sitcom, but he's a very accomplished dramatic actor as well, and he does a really good job in this film. I really like that he had such a good charisma on screen and chemistry with everyone he worked with. He just has, because he is a convicted murderer, but he also has this sort of sense of shades of gray to him, that he is a guy who's always kind of out for himself in a certain way and always trying to balance things back and forth, what's in his best interest to help out with something or kind of shy away from here and there, as the character of Burke tries to kind of befriend him and whatnot, kind of warm up to him and whatnot. But the guy who does have a certain gritty, sort of gruff type of past to him and everything. So it's a very interesting, nuanced performance from Robert Guillaume. He really nails something very interesting and compelling, that he make him a very engaging character, to add these little things to his makeup of what decisions he has to make throughout the entire course of the film as things develop and things get more dangerous for him, much more perilous for him. So he does a really good job. I really liked his performance overall in this whole film. And even Kilpatrick really does a really fine job as the Sandman in this film, a really psychopathic type of character that really doesn't get as much screen time to develop himself into as much of a memorable villain as you'd really like him to, because you can even look at something like Hard Target, which has two fantastic actors as villains in that film, and they get a lot of juicy screen time to develop themselves and make a strong impression on the audience. Like Patrick, he does get some moments in the film that are very strong. He has a nice solid presence, but I feel like it's a very, again, narrow, flat type of character that doesn't have much going on for him. He doesn't really get to develop much of a character. He just kind of very one note straightforward psychopath that has a few scenes at the beginning at the third act of the film and everything. So it's nice if you kind of had a little bit more kind of threading through the whole film to really get more background or depth between him and Burke or whatnot, to really kind of build that up even more by the time you get this reveal of the character coming back into the thread of this entire film and everything. So there's little things that could have been done to really strengthen up a lot of the different plot threads and character threads throughout the entire film to really kind of, again, give the actors a little bit more to chew on in this whole thing. And Kilpatrick definitely does chew on a lot of scenery with his performance, and again does make a strong impression. I just feel like there's a lot of opportunity in the script that really could have been taken to really flesh out the ideas and the characters and really kind of just strengthen out some of these points in the film that I feel like they could have had a little bit more weight, a little bit more impact, a little more juice as you go forward in the whole thing, and just have, again, more of an undercurrent of emotion with the character of Burke that build him up as the film goes along, to have more of that sort of what happened with the Sandman kind of hang over him, and what happened with his partner, all these different things that have a little bit more emotional thread through in the film, to have a stronger base for Van Damme to work off of. Really would have been nice and really give the third act of the film much more of a payoff in general, because as the film starts, all that kind of history between the two characters already happened. We haven't seen any of this stuff go down between the Sandman killing off Burke's partner and all this type of stuff build up to the whole thing. It's just like, it's just the payoff at the beginning of the film, then another payoff at the end of the film. So it's like there's never any true build up between the two characters to give you enough type of thing to really feel like there's something earned in those moments or whatnot. Just like, you know, the guy's a threat, and so when he shows up again, you know that there's shit gonna go down and Burke will be exposed as a cop in the prison. But it just feels like there wasn't as much personal build-up for the audience between those two characters that I think really could have been fleshed out better with a little bit more work on the script or whatnot. And have a nice bit of supporting cast in this film, such as Art LaFleur as Sergeant DeGraff, who's kind of the big heavy in the prison or whatnot. The guy who's kind of running everything and really kind of leaning into everyone, just having a really good, solid, intimidating presence. He really sells it well. And having Joshua John Miller in this film, who had been in Class of 1999 and Near Dark before this, really does a nice sort of slightly humorous performance as this sort of little kind of computer cracker or whatnot that Burke sends off with Cynthia Gibb's character, and have these nice little interactions that gives the film a little bit of that levity that you kind of enjoy to have there and everything. So he did a nice job, and generally everyone does a nice job in the film, but again, it's just that a lot of the material doesn't really kind of give you as much to elevate as much as you would want to, but they do the best they can with the material that they have and deliver as best performances as they can with that material. And you've got Russell Carpenter here as the cinematographer who ended up shooting Hard Target for John Woo with Van Damme, as well as True Lies and Titanic, as Charlie's Angels film, and more recently Ant-Man, and does a really good job that when he has moments in the film that he can really do something very special, it really freaking shines. He puts together some very striking, solid imagery when the moment calls for it, that whenever you really need a very strong, dramatic visual in this film, he absolutely, positively delivers it well above expectations. But the large majority of the film is pretty standard fare type of cinematography, point and shoot type of stuff, with a few little pieces of camera movement where it needs to, but a lot of it is just kind of what do you expect for the film, and not really kind of push things too far in too much of a stylized direction. But like I said, when the film really needs some punchy visuals, it really just draws that out and really delivers something very good that can really just look great. It really delivers something really nice on screen. But the one thing that I felt was not of very good quality at all in this film was the score by Gary Chang, which is pretty much him doing an orchestral score through a synthesizer, and that just ended up making the film feel so absolutely cheap to me, because you can't really do orchestral arrangements through a cheapo synthesizer and make it think it's going to sound good. It made it sound like a very, very low budget direct-to-video film, which is absolutely not. But I've heard those types of films with quality scores like this that are pretty much appropriate for the quality and budget that they had. This was not matching up in any type of way for me, quality-wise. I just could not tell you how many times watching this film, I just kept saying, the score is absolutely awful. It just takes me right out of the whole film because it just doesn't function for me. And it's just weird that if you don't have enough money for the orchestral score, get someone who can actually work with synthesizers and create a very synthesizer-based score. Or, apparently, like with Lionheart, they originally budgeted out for a synthesizer score, but after they saw how good that film was turning out, they put in like another $250,000 to get an orchestral score put together and really put the money into it. So it's like weird that whether even when you have Canon films go bankrupt and they can't put that money forward, strange that when MGM got the film, they didn't really kind of pump in a couple extra $100,000 to really kind of pump it out with a nice quality score. It just came out very, very cheap and very just didn't feel like a film score, in my opinion. It just felt very demo type of film score in type of way, just like something you'd track out and then intend to put in front of an orchestral symphony or whatnot. Not something you put into a film of this quality, this level or whatnot, with a theatrical release. You just don't put that together. It just felt very bad to me. I just didn't enjoy it at all. But the action in this film is something very interesting here because, again, you're going into a Van Damme film expecting a lot of action, and certainly that's what the trailer kind of sells you, along with a nice kind of story or whatnot that goes along with it. But as I kind of said earlier, it really is much more of a story-based film, so you get a few little punches of action here and there, but nothing that really amounts to anything too spectacular or anything that really kind of just gets your adrenaline pumping of sorts. And it's not until really the climax of the film where you got Burke and the Sandman throwing down in the middle of the prison there that you get a climactic fight where pretty much for half the time Burke Van Damme is getting his ass kicked all over the place, and he only gets like a few nice little hits in. So it's like, it's one of those things that maybe if I don't want many repeat viewings, I might get a little more out of it. But I felt like it was kind of a little disappointing. I mean, I've seen like Sudden Death where they didn't use a whole lot of martial arts in that whole thing, made it much more of a downplayed type of action sequences, but because you got a fantastic action in that film, Van Damme still delivers some good type of physicality in the whole thing. This felt like it just kind of didn't have much inspired to it with the action sequences, that even if you got this script that isn't very inspired, isn't all that imaginative, very standard fare, if you put together some really solid, energetic type of action sequences that just kind of really has something extra to go on to, a little extra juice, the inject into the film, you'd have something very nice here. But you get a few little throwdowns. You get like Van Damme and stuntman extraordinaire Al Leong throwing down for a nice short period there, but they're not really doing a whole lot of innovative type of stuff or anything that's too exciting or whatnot. They're just kind of like fighting with a stick and a chain or whatnot, and a few minor hits here. So it was like you had some opportunities to really get some good stuff here with some very talented physical actors, and they really just didn't push towards that too often. It really just didn't have much inspired towards the action of the film. It is a good climax. They put together a very solid piece of cinematography and good editing and sorts. In most places, there are some weird little edits in this whole thing that just kind of like repeat kicks and hits and stuff like that, which just felt like it's kind of standard fare for Van Damme films of the time, where they kind of repeat hits here and there to kind of drag out an action sequence for whatever ridiculous reason, instead of just choreographing it very, very well and having a lot of interesting stuff to capture on screen and edit together in kind of long takes or whatnot. It's like, it felt like very point and shoot, standard type of stuff, not really anything going on with the choreography or stuff like that to really kind of punch it up and really make use of Van Damme that much. It just felt like uninspired, and that's kind of the feeling you get in general with the film. It is a kind of a good time, but like I said, it doesn't have as much action as you want from a Van Damme film because it is so story driven and so focused on just hitting all the story beats and uncovering all the little things. It doesn't really have much action to really kind of satiate that taste that you want if you're marathoning Van Damme films and you're watching like Bloodsport and Sudden Death and Hard Target and such. This one probably would feel like you kind of tune out a little bit because it has a lot more stuff going on with narrative flow and not as much stuff getting bombast and action and throwdown, knockdown, drag out type of stuff. I mean, there's some nice beats, but it doesn't really hit as much. It doesn't hit as strong as some other Van Damme films do at this time. It really just feels like they didn't have as much charging forward, or maybe they just didn't have as much time and effort and money to put into it to really kind of deliver as much. They probably spent a lot of that money on cinematography and the location they had to do and the sound stages they probably had to build for everything and a lot of extras and whatnot. So it's like they might not have had as much time or a very good choreographer to really kind of draw out some dynamic action sequences. So it's like, that's the one thing I kind of like feel like the film just kind of falls short in that type of way, that it is kind of a mediocre film. That's kind of the way to go off of it. That Van Damme does have a full range of quality of films in his filmography, depending on when he made them and how invested he was in the film, and just who was behind the camera of these films. And like I said, Sarafian is a solid director who can put together a fantastic, energetic, entertaining type of stuff when he has the right elements to work with. Unfortunately, I just felt like a lot of things just felt uninspired with Death Warrant, a film that has a lot of things that could have been used to so much greater effect that just didn't quite hit as strongly as I feel they possibly could, with more of the right elements in place and a lot more ambition put forward to really just make the most of what they had. It's a film that's nice. I enjoyed it, but I don't know how much I'll be tempted to really break it out when I'm looking at Sudden Death or Time Cop or whatnot. So very interesting. I'd like to hear what you guys feel about Death Warrant itself and how it kind of stacks up with all the other Van Damme films for you, and probably some other like prison movies of sorts like Lockup with Stallone or Escape Plan with Stallone, or take your pick or whatever it was. It seems like Stallone breaks out of prison a lot of times. He does that in Tango and Cash as well, so he's gotten good at it. But regardless of that, if you want to stack it up against some other films of this kind, let me know how you feel about it. If you feel the same way about the action sequences, they're a little uninspired and didn't really kind of drive forward to anything very entertaining or terribly fresh or exciting or whatnot, throw it in the comments. Let me know what you felt about it. But I want to get some Van Damme going, and this was a interesting one to kind of throw into the mix here and see where things stood for it. So we'll see how things go along, and I'll definitely be checking out some other Van Damme films as time goes on. And of course, as always guys, your support, your thumbs up, your comments, your sharing the likes around is always fantastically well appreciated. And I'll be back with some other fantastic stuff soon, guys. So thanks much. Take care. Bye-bye.